So, welcome back. It's wonderful to be sitting here with you again with a late night recording of the Call to the Brewman's Bottle. So, let's get it all started. This is Josh.
And this is Matt.
And this is the Call to the Brewman's Bottle.
The Call to the Brewman's Bottle.
So, we've had a wonderful week. It was just an awesome time covering E3 and everything, but we've been getting into all the rest of the nerd culture that we thoroughly enjoy here on the call. So it's going to be a really, really fun episode tonight, and we just wanted to sit down, even though I know I had a really long day today. I couldn't wait to sit down and talk with you guys about some things. We got a lot of real exciting stuff to go over this week. Episode 12 is a real landmark.
Episode 12.
Yes, it's a landmark episode for us. It means so many different things. We've discovered a whole lot in the first 11 episodes of the podcast. And so one of the first things that we want to break to you guys is that we've been putting our heads together with a friend of ours that we've made recently about this website, because we've talked a lot about it on the podcast, but in the end, neither of us really had the knowledge of how to put this idea together and get it online for you guys. So we've met a guy, we've been sitting down and talking with him, and we're really excited to be able to announce to you that as far as right now, it's projected that in 7 days, we'll have the podcast on a website available for download so that you can just go through and download an episode straight to your phone, and you won't have to do any more of this YouTube just draining your battery life and holding you down. You're going to be able to go get your download and listen to it without using any of your data if you want to. You can get it on Wi-Fi and all these different ways. So if you've had people that you know, just like we have, that have said, you know, I just can't keep using this YouTube on my phone because I can't close it, or for data reasons or battery reasons.
I mean, who wants to keep a video open for a whole hour? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we're going to keep updating the YouTube channel as long as we're doing the podcast, but we're going to have this other avenue for you guys in the next week, as far as we can tell right now. So hopefully this will be the first episode that you can go out and retrieve for yourself.
I mean, we're going to be on iTunes, and personally, and I probably would guess for Josh as well, it's a lot to say that I can share an experience with him being on iTunes.
Yeah, that's something that from my childhood, you know, it seemed so far away and so hard to do, and it's real neat to have put our heads together and made this happen this way, so that once we get it up and on the website and everything, really shortly after that, we'll be able to submit all of this stuff that we've been doing to the major distributors. And it's just going to be so easy for you to just snatch the podcast onto your phone or your iPod or whatever it is that you use and just hang out with us. One thing that we wanted to reiterate about the podcast before we get started really this time on our topics that we have to go over is that we just wanted to kind of give a small overview of what it is that we try to do with the podcast every week. I know that I find it extremely fascinating that when I was a child, being a nerd was one thing, and now in my adult life, that entire statement, I am a nerd, means a wholly different thing when you say it.
I can completely agree with that. Two things, the reason why the podcast hits home is, one, when I was growing up, my stepdad and my uncles and my grandfather, they all listened to a radio talk show that came on late at night called Art Bell, Coast to Coast.
I remember that. My family did the same thing.
Those stories that he got from all these crazy people on the phone, or people that would come in and do these all crazy theories, you know, kind of like what the Joe Rogan experience is, you know.
Right, but for our parents.
Right, exactly. So, growing up on that, I was really fascinated with it, and then I worked with a guy named Kenneth Wade. While he was growing up, he told me a lot of stories about how different radio shows that he would listen to, and how, and how that's a real concept. So all that culmination really comes to a point when you asked me if we wanted to do a podcast over nerd stuff. I was really excited.
Oh, yeah. And what got me, especially just adding on to what you just said, was the fact that we do so much in our own time just to keep ourselves entertained. I think our entire generation grew up on just constant exposure to entertainment, that we have so many different avenues that regardless of whether or not we were going to have microphones in front of us, we're going to sit down and have these conversations. And I've always been a role play guy, and to me, I consider these times of us sitting down behind the microphone the whole reason that we call the podcast what it is. It's the call to the Brewman's bottle, because this is like an imaginary tavern for us. In some of the LARPs and stuff that we do, we get the chance to feel what it would feel like to sit in a tavern with your friends and just go back and forth about anything and everything that may be going on in your real life or going on in whatever fantasy life you might be having. And so this, to me, seems like an opportunity to bring as many people as possible into that kind of an experience where we're just sitting down and we're opening a dialogue about things that we care about. So as we continue to put out episodes and we break out of the double digits and we go into the triple digits and years get in the books, I just want everybody to remain in this common headspace that we have, that is the call to the Brewman's bottle, where we can go back and forth and we can talk about things. And we want to open up as many avenues of communication from the outside in, so that you're not just sitting down and listening to us talk as much as you're able to come in and take part in the discussion.
Remember, you guys can always comment. You guys can always reply. You can get on the Twitter. And, of course, as we've mentioned before, we will eventually have guests, so that will open up even more avenues of discussion for us.
Absolutely. We've already been looking in multi-channel mixers and multiple mics so that we can actually set this up for real, what it is that we're talking about. So we've given a lot of light on the things that are going on in our heads right now, and the last thing that I really want to talk about is the fact that we came in straight for E3 coverage after a really huge event that is really awesome, that I think deserves some talk, that you got to go to in Bonaroo. But we had to cover E3 because of how in line with what it is that we're doing here E3 is. So, Matt, I want to know, what was Bonaroo like for you, and how was that experience?
Not a lot of sleep.
Surely not.
There was a lot of music. And going with Sarah this time, she really opened up a lot of avenues on, there's classes that you can take. There's
really?
Discussions and stuff that you can have. The comedy tent I've never been to. They showed Game of Thrones almost every single night in the movies, in the movie tent. Yeah, they did. Yeah,
that's really cool.
It was really cool. But the biggest thing, I guess, other than the music, before we get on that, would have to be the comedy. I've only been to 2 other comedy shows in my entire life, and going to see Ari Shaffir was something that I not only did for you, since you couldn't make it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have missed that show.
No, exactly. And I couldn't miss it either for you. But it was also a good experience to have this crowd that was maybe 50 to 75 people, and he's doing shows like every hour and a half all day. So he's tired. It's like at the end of the night, you can tell he's exhausted. He's definitely having a good time, and he still belches out really good comedy. And live theater is something that you've told me you have a passion about, and watching it is a great experience.
Absolutely, man. I feel like it's such a personal experience to go and see a comedian, and to be, when it comes to Ari Shaffir in particular, he always strikes me as the type of guy that just is a festival kind of guy, where maybe he's not, the dirty hippie that you might think of, that some people have the impression of when they think of Bonaroo, but he's into that type of a crowd. He exists in that atmosphere so well, and I'm sure it was just next level seeing him do a show for his people.
It was he made it very prominent that a couple of times that he liked the fact that there was still people showing up, that there was still a small crowd, and he really enjoyed that because he can interact with people. He can actually, see everyone's fucking faces, as he put it, and be able to talk. and interact. And in the end, that's what live theater is it's I'm going to tell you some jokes, I'm going to get up here and embarrass myself, but we're going to have a good time together.
Absolutely. It's always that transfer of emotion. The truest of art forms are making people feel what you feel through whatever medium it is, and that live theater is really awesome. So tell me a little bit about the music, because we went over a little bit of the bands that you were planning on going to see, and I know, even having talked to you personally, that you didn't get to go see everybody you wanted to, and you got to go see some people you didn't expect to go see. So who did you get to see, and what was most awesome about it?
Okay, wow, there's a lot. So I was going to go see Moon Taxi, which I did get to see the one song that I really liked by them, which was awesome. There was a 15-minute just freestyle saxophone right in the middle.
Oh, man.
That is not part of the song, and no one expected it. It went crazy.
That's
but anyways.
the best about those music festivals, man, is when the artists just let it out.
Yeah. So instead, I went and saw Against Me with Terrence, your real good friend from New York.
Right. And let's just interject right here. I have this friend, Terrence, from New York. Sometimes he listens, I believe. If he's not listening, Terrence needs to get on this podcast. But Terrence, his initials are TNT, and he is literally just an explosion of fun everywhere he goes.
So basically, at the beginning, Sarah's like, hey, man, I'm going to go see Against Me. Do you want to go see this and go see Moon Taxi? Halfway through, I'm like, nah, I'm going to go see Moon Taxi. And she's like, all right, well, peace. I'm going to go get in the pit. So she leaves, and about 10 or 15 minutes later, Against Me is setting up way before Moon Taxi is, and they start playing some real old songs, and they just continue to play really good songs. I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to go and see them. So I run into Terrence accidentally, and one thing I want to point out that's really weird and mesmerizing at the same time is the fact that the lead singer used to be male, and he spent a lot of time and money to become a female. Mm-hmm. So he is a she now.
Yeah.
And she didn't do anything to her vocal cords. So you have this model on stage that is still singing like a oversized biker.
Yeah, and this is Against Me, so it's definitely some man mode music at times.
Yeah. And so just seeing that was just crazy, and it really it blew the crowd up, and the pit was so intense I couldn't do it. I had to get out.
Yeah, but Sarah was in that sucker
the entire time. So that was good. What other highlights? Florence and the Machine was excellent. She is a British singer that does interpretive dance way before she started singing, so she does all this crazy ballet stuff while she's belting all this music, and it's really fantastic and uplifting to watch. Plus the crowd was really positive.
Yeah, I know the crowd at Bonaroo can make or break the show. Speaking of the bane of Bonaroo, old Kanye, I've heard people have really enjoyed shows by him, but I've never heard of somebody enjoying Kanye at Bonnaroo. We can move on from Kanye, dude. We don't have to stay there.
So, speaking of disappointments, though, Childish Gambino, I'm very disappointed in. Half his crowd walked away. He played almost his entire set was all new songs. He played mixtape. Yeah. But other than that, it was a real big disappointment, and it wasn't anything that if maybe I saw him 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been like.
Well, Terrence said himself outright that he's been to a Gambino show in New York, and it's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could be a hit or miss, or it could be the fact that he was really promoting his new album.
Well, I can feel an artist doing that, even though sometimes it does result in a show that you maybe weren't expecting. But I did hear that he had his just due where he got together in a collaboration. Was it with Kanye? Where they were rapping together and it was awesome.
It was Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar. Man. My bad, Kendrick. My bad. But, I think that when it comes to Gambino, you and I can both agree that we're fans of what he does in general, from his acting to his comedy to his music. So I'd have to say that is sad, but I'm glad he brought it out a little bit at least.
We also saw Trampled by Turtles,
okay,
which is a northern folk band.
Right.
and they're extremely good. It's all classical instruments, basically. So
I like a lot of the weird folk that's coming out lately. One of the guys that we work with, named Ryan, actually just introduced me to a band that his buddy is in, and they do a real, almost eerily folky sound, and then right almost in the middle of the song, there's a dude that just raps a few bars, and then they go right back into this folk song.
that's really awesome. That's really
It's really good, and I wish I could just whip it out and show it to you right now, but I'll have to play it for you sometime.
And so on top of that, we also saw Brandi Carlile, and Brandi Carlile is really good. It's like
Exasperated thought.
she's like Western country.
Okay, I can dig it.
She plays with two twins. They're I think two guitars, or either guitar and bass. I can't remember, but she also does acoustic and electric while she's singing.
Right.
And she did a really good set. I caught her on the Lightning 100, that local station that plays in Nashville up here.
Right.
I kind of got hooked on her, and then when I found out that was really the one person I wanted to see at Bonnaroo, and she did not disappoint. Oh, plus I saw
Are you going to talk about Sylvan Esso right now?
Sylvan Esso. Yes, that was actually.
Dude, I wasn't going to let you move on from Bonnaroo without talking about Sylvan Esso.
Sylvan Esso was over the top.
Yeah.
It's just her out there singing, and her counterpart over there just playing on this just itty bitty keyboard, and he's mixing everything live.
It sounds spectacular.
While she's singing, she came out in this huge dress that was like bedazzled with these huge eyes all over it, and she looked really crazy. It was awesome, and she danced. The crowd was definitely electric.
Yeah, I'm sure that show was really, really good. Since we mentioned on the podcast that you might be seeing them, I've been driving around in my car just cutting on Sylvan Esso every now and then just because. And it's just been a complete revitalization of why I enjoyed that music in particular.
It's just simple beats, man, with some beautiful singing over it, you know?
Yet again, that transfer of emotion. Whatever it is that she's feeling, I'm feeling. And I'm loving it. Having just a great time.
So I guess that would be the end of my Bonnaroo experience. You know, plus, if no one has ever been to Bonnaroo, it's kind of like a Southern Woodstock, to give the best example.
Well, it's just a gathering of free spirits in the end, and a place where musicians, and from what you're telling me, comedians, and just people from all different types of entertainment and social interaction get together just to have a wonderful time for a few days. I'm really into that kind of thing because of where we've been through our LARP experience, going from hitting each other with sticks in the backyard to traveling all up and down the nation to find these gatherings of people who love to play glorified cowboys and Indians. I mean, it's the same thing for people who are into music and entertainment in that fashion. So let's move right on into some gaming, man. We've been having a great time with ESO over the past few weeks. Throughout all of E3, we were playing Elder Scrolls Online. There were times where it was troublesome to break away from Elder Scrolls to get some of the E3 coverage going on for you guys. So we wanted to sit down and just talk a little bit more about what it is that the game has become for us. I've got a personal character that I'm playing by myself, but we're spending a whole lot of time playing these two characters that we've even given a little bit of a roleplay background. They're two orc brothers named Nanga and Nasher Stone Grip, and we're just having a great time breaking down the game for what it is and giving it another go, like we've said previously in the podcast.
So let's break down our characters with the math before we get to the actual role-play meaty parts.
Well,
you can go ahead and go first, man.
I was going to say, you've broken yours down a little bit more, where I've got my baser, I would say, veteran MMO player knowledge of the class that I've played, and the fact that this is the class that I played when we started the game. But I'm playing a Templar, and we chose to do Orcs because of all the races, Orcs and Nords are the best of the heavy armor, heavy weapon classes. And so we chose to play these orcs, and we're going in, and we decided that we were going to do something that, normally when we go in to play an MMO together, we go and we meta the pocket heals and tank combination. But you were wanting to do a melee DPS, which is something you do not do in MMOs very often.
Not at all.
And I wanted to do the tank because I did the healer version of my class on the original character that I had played. So I'm playing a Templar. I'm doing sword and shield and heavy armor. Now, the really cool thing about Elder Scrolls Online is that they've brought in some of the elements of Elder Scrolls in general into the game to where it doesn't matter what class you are, you can just pick up a weapon and start using it. And the more you use it, the more you put the points into being good at using that weapon, the better you get. So, as a Templar that uses a sword and shield, I am set to have the combat abilities that I need to move toward being a tank. And so, I'm doing the sword and shield as my weapon proficiency. The heavy armor, really without going into too much detail on it, is just basically increasing your health and stamina. It's got tank written all over it because that's how much you're able to stand there and take, as well as how much you're able to stand there and use when it comes to your weapon abilities. And then the last thing that I'm doing is called the Ardric Spear class tree. And that's where it separates a little bit from what you might be used to. And you go into the way that you have 3 different paths within your class that you can put points in, aside from the armor skills that you can put points in. Everything, just to go down the list, it's everything from armor to crafts to racials to class abilities and so on and so forth that you're picking, that you go through and you say, I'm going to pick these because it's going to make the class that I want to play, the archetype rather, the tank, healer, DPS, what have you. And so in this build that we're doing, we're metagaming to a certain degree to make our classes as appropriate as possible, but we're also just kind of going in and making the characters that we envision for ourselves. And I think an MMO giving you the ability to do those two things as easily as Elder Scrolls is, that's how you're going to keep your player base and keep them coming back. They're going to enjoy their character.
I really like what you had pointed out in the beginning, the fact that whatever you pick up or whatever you put a point in is what you put a point in. It's your decision entirely. And a lot of MMOs don't really have that.
Right.
This one is definitely, if you want to, I mean, even if you want to stunt yourself, you can be a wizard that carries a melee weapon and you can put points in it. I mean, it's up to you.
You could even be a wizard that's running around in heavy armor.
Yeah, exactly.
That has health and stamina and uses that great sword, but also busts out with some spells. And if that's not Elder Scrolls, then I don't know what is. And that's what this game was going for. It's done differently. And if you're somebody that can't really handle change, I'm not hating on you for that, but then maybe this game isn't for you. But I can see Elder Scrolls and what they did in this particular MMO, and I'm really, really enjoying that aspect of it. Not even to say that we've still not made it through the first map, even though we've been playing a whole bunch, because we really just want to do everything and go for the completionist aspect and doing it together as well. I can't stress enough how much more fun it is to sit there and have somebody to talk to about what's going on and, get their opinion on the specific story that you're participating in. It really makes everything a whole lot more fun. That's really the breakdown of the character that I'm trying to do. In the future, I can come back with a few more numbers and everything, having actually put some research into it rather than just saying, hey, this is a guy that I play in the way of the points that I'm doing. But you're doing the Dragon Knight, right? And you've done a lot of research into the way the numbers are going to affect your particular class, weapon, and armor combination. So tell us a little bit about that, Matt.
Let me start at the beginning. So Nasher has medium armor on to give him the maximum potential on stamina attacks and stamina regen.
Which will enable your melee attacks, correct?
Right. And wearing medium armor also increases my crit chance. So what I'm going for, the maximum build, is as much stamina with as many attacks with the highest crit chance.
Okay.
And that also goes along with my AoE attacks that I get for being an orc and a dragon knight, like magma armor. Magma armor will give me a constant AoE, and I focus on another attack where the distance traveled Damage is increased based on my stamina points as
Like
well.
a charge attack.
Yes.
Okay.
I also have a lot of stun abilities, so I can lock down single targets effectively and unleash a lot of DPS.
Right. So you were saying your maximum potential with
I'm
your
sorry. So
two-hander
yeah,
and your medium armor.
my maximum potential is 10,000 per second on damage.
Right. And
Or
Elder
higher.
Scrolls seems to have some really big numbers when it comes to that, but just thinking about
Base 10,000 per second is high.
right,
Extremely.
that's a high number even in the Elder Scrolls, which I mean when you think about games like WoW that are breaking into 100,000s and things, it doesn't seem like much.
Another build that I want to get into that they also suggest is two-weapon fighting, dual wielding.
I was wondering because you had mentioned that number of attacks was affecting that in DPS number. And
Yeah,
I
that's
would
why
think
with
that-
two-handed you increase your crit chance instead.
I see, and that's typical for most games.
So yeah, and they actually call for the fastest daggers that you can get in the game.
For the two-weapon
For
fighting.
the two-weapon fighting, yeah. So it's two of those, and I think the chest piece is heavy armor, and then all the other pieces are medium. Is the most effective way of doing it.
That's pretty neat.
I messed up and put a couple of points in a knockback attack called uppercut. It does a lot of damage, but uppercut doesn't affect bosses in the game,
I was
so
gonna
it's
say that
pointless
probably-
and it's slow.
A lot of monsters that just don't receive the
Instead, when I reskill, I'm going to put that in cleave, which is what I should have put it in, and that just basically I can do 7 enemies at once in dungeons and drop them. So
right
that's
on.
basically the build of my guy.
Right on. Well, as we progress more and we break into some dungeons, we'll be coming back with more ESO. I don't see ESO really going anywhere anytime soon. One other game that I haven't really been playing as much, but I don't want to let it fall to the wayside because it will probably always be there for me as long as the server is active. My brother and his friend Tom continuously play this Project 1999 EverQuest emulator server. And it's so much fun for somebody like me to be able to just jump back on and experience that old world game. So that's another MMO that we're probably going to hit on a little bit. I know I've just showered Matt in lore and stories from Norath. And I've gotten him to play EverQuest a couple of times, and it's hard to get old players that have never played EverQuest to try to play it in the new day. But just to shed a little light on that a little bit, that we hit on it in the first few episodes and it disappeared, that is something that is still a part of my MMO atmosphere, and it really will be as long as I'm gaming on MMOs and that server's up.
It was really exciting to hear from you that your brother is in one of the top guilds.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be one of the top
Top
guilds, but
rotations, I guess is what I mean.
He's in a C-class rating guild, which is really, like I was explaining to you the other night, it's step 1 in moving toward the end game of EverQuest, which is absolutely mind-boggling in my opinion. It goes so crazy, takes you into some of the deepest, darkest dungeons I think that have ever been created in a game to this day. So much lore, and every door that you open could have a story behind it in that game. But he joined a C-class rating guild, and just without going into too much detail, because the rating structure in EverQuest is immense, really. It's just when you kind of make a commitment at that point to say, this is the group of people that I'm going to push through the rest of the game with. And that's a real big jump, in my opinion, from what he was in the old days of playing EverQuest. We were really children running around in this world not understanding exactly what it was. And this is a jump that he began to make that I just wasn't old enough to make at the time, that now he has come full circle and he's able to do that. And I think it's really cool to talk about how an emulator server can enable an old school gamer that loved the game when he was a kid, but really couldn't do everything that the game had to offer. Now he can go back and he's doing it. And it's really cool. And he gets that supreme sense of accomplishment that we seek through gaming through this. And it's just, I can't speak the praises of it enough. So we were talking a lot about our characters in general, and we didn't really go too much into the trade skilling, which I think is such an awesome part of ESO.
Crafting is top notch.
I've always said that if there was ever a Sword Art Online style MMO that we could go into, I would be a chef or a blacksmith without a doubt. I might not even be an adventurer at all. I would just do my deal. Make food for people, make weapons and armor for people, and stay in the town. Because trade skilling to me is just such an awesome concept to develop characters in MMOs, and they're doing that so well in the Elder Scrolls Online.
I really like the in-depthness of it, and I like the options that you have with the various recipes and whatnot. Cooking is my main skill in almost every MMO.
I was going to say cooking in ESO is unique in the recipes, really.
The fact that provisioning is everywhere and you can find it in any nook and cranny.
Yeah.
Actually, today I got my 25th recipe, which is real exciting.
That is really cool, and I'm going to go ahead and say it is probably really, really helped to have my dude to supplement your recipe supply, because in the Elder Scrolls Online, when you're doing provisioning, you pick up all these materials that you don't have any recipes to do anything with. So getting your 25th recipe is really helpful in maintaining your inventory.
Oh, that's with everything. That's like all the armor I gave you and stuff. I mean, that's just the culmination of us playing in a group, and that the fact that we only play these characters with each other and we're doing the missions together and stuff. It's boosted my want of playing the game for the simple fact that camaraderie is fun and fluid.
That's a great point, man. That cooperation changes the game experience in the Elder Scrolls Online. What more could you ask for from a Elder Scrolls MMO, really? It really does hit that point with me, and I can't stress it enough. I'm doing blacksmithing, and it's really interesting that you seem to start with the ability to create pretty much every basic thing that a blacksmith would be able to create, and then it's how you manipulate the mechanics through the system is how your character becomes good at blacksmithing. So you really work at it. And so it's not so much like, I got to get the next item. I got to get to where I can make this really cool thing that's going to give me 2 skill points every time I make it. It's more about, I have to be a blacksmith. I got to research what's on this. I got to learn how to do that. And I'm also doing enchanting, so it makes it constantly worth going back to town to try to expand my character's knowledge of his trade to better equip himself to continue adventuring, which through other MMOs has almost always been a very robot-like character that you go up to that seems to supply your adventurer, when in Elder Scrolls Online, it really feels like the world and the people within it supply your adventure.
Well, I really like how they gave uniqueness to like the different company names of the shops, or maybe different traders.
Guild stores, yeah.
Yes, and the guild stores. Yeah, that's a great example. Different guilds selling different stuff, or the same stuff, just different looks. So it adds like a hustle and bustle commerce style look to it.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that you can go up on the bulletin board and you can get regent missions where you need to go build this, or you need to go make that, or you need to go collect this material.
Just crafting dailies.
Yeah, like it's basically boosting you to do the stuff that you were already going to do, plus it's going to give you a reward.
Yeah, I really love an MMO that insists that you participate in the world to be better. And that's what it's doing. And I mean, it's got me right now. I can't say it enough times. It's got me right now, and it's probably going to have me for a hot minute.
So speaking of a game like Elder Scrolls, let's just keep on rolling this ball. Let's talk about D&D.
Yes, let's move into analog gaming. I'm really excited, and I want to mention something about the D&D campaign that we're doing. Almost every D&D campaign that I've participated in where you miss multiple weeks of a session in a row, the campaign itself quits. It never starts back up, and we're doing it with this one. We got everybody together, and we said, we are going to continue doing this. So one of our integral players in our veteran D&D session that we've referenced in multiple podcasts went to Ireland for 11 days, and we had to miss a couple of sessions. But we told him the day after he came back, hey, man, you're off work and you're coming over and you're playing D&D. So we had a little progress in our session, and there's some things that have gone down that we can finally shed full light on exactly what's going on in the session.
So before I say all the DM goodies that I got out of this, I want you to go ahead and give a good walkthrough to everyone over the player's perspective.
Okay, there's a lot to cover, and so I might abridge a few things. So there might be some adventures that come up later that happened within this time, but I believe the last thing that we talked about on the podcast was going through the second dungeon with the elemental monks and everything. After that was all said and done, we moved on from that area, basically smoothed everything over with the townsfolk so that they realized that these elemental monks are cultists, and really their activity in their town could have been detrimental. The sinkhole that we referenced happened because we basically brought down their temple. Thug nasty, going into dungeons. This is the way our party works. And after that was all said and done, the constable of the town told us of some things that we could go and take care of, where there were some orc camps to the south that were causing trouble and really disrupting things. And on our way to go take care of some of these camps, as well as possibly some of the other denizens of the cults that we'd run into so far, which there were 2 as of the last time we referenced it on the podcast. There's a third that came in while we were searching for the camps to the south of Red Larch. We found this tower of these griffin knights called the Featherfall Knights that just so happened to be an air cult. So the third cult is now involved in whatever is going on with these crazy cult activities that seem to be everywhere that our characters travel on the Sword Coast right now. So we go thinking that, oh, well, these are knightly guys, they must be good, into this tower that they have, seeking refuge and going to ask if there were any other orc camps that needed to be taken care of. And they get attacked by a manticore, and we have a really awesome and intense aerial fight on griffins where we bring down a manticore. My wizard's throwing spells and slinging magic everywhere. The cleric's up there causing storms in the skies and just going crazy. And the paladin's doing everything he can from the back of his griffin.
So this is one of the most noted part of me DMing. What did it feel like to be able to be invited in? They're kind of, like talking to you. They're hanging out. They invite you to a feast. You're sitting comfortably.
Yeah.
And then the front doors bust in. And then literally from there to the next 100 feet, you've been pushed off the ledge onto the back of a huge vulture.
I was going to say, I got the vulture and the other 2 guys got griffins. But anyways, that was a surreal D&D experience to me personally because of the fact that we're doing this from a book. So they're giving you these really over-the-top scenarios that I've played some of your homebrew campaigns, and I don't mean this in a truly negative light, but the homebrew campaigns just don't have that. They don't have that switch to adventure element sometimes. You really ease into adventure when it's
no,
in
you're
Friend's
definitely on a homebrew. You're walking along the pages of the entirety of the story.
Right.
There's no movie-rich plot line that they give. I really enjoyed the fact that environment really played a key in this battle as well, everyone. Right. So what I really liked about this certain instance in the storyline is you guys were able to be thrusted into this action-packed fight on the back of these large winged creatures, and it's nighttime, and it's cloudy. You're up 200 or 300 feet in the air, and the environment really plays a key. Mm-hmm. And the way the book had it set up to where it's all right. What do they do? What do they decide to do with themselves and the Feathergale Knights? And so once they gave the decision to me, at that point they were asked to give perception checks because not only are they flying around and the animals know the grooves and the actual walls of the canyon, but you have to look for the monster at the same time that the winged creature is keeping you aloft, which is really interesting.
It definitely changes your thought process in combat from I've got this movement speed on certain amounts of squares and we're going to flank and this and that and the other to you're really just trying to use your skills to make it possible for you to affect wherever this monster is. And had we not chosen the route that we did and stayed with, and I've been saying it wrong the entire time, the Feathergale Knights, they were a big part in us being able to sight the Manticore in the first place, because what you had said after the session was over was that it was possible that the Manticore flies deep into the canyon and you have to go find him.
You do 15 rounds, and then at that point, the fight actually advances into the canyon where you're flying in between canyon walls and trying to attack him as he goes back to his lair.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
No, man. We're going to kill it and do what we do. So, anyway, we kill this Manticore, which was a really awesome aerial battle. Something I personally had never experienced in D&D and really, really enjoyed. To going back and these Feathergale Knights tell us as a party, hey, thanks for helping us and everything, and participating in our feast, but you have to join us if you ever want to leave. And our party is not about that life. And so I pulled my wizard card out. Charm person got us out of this tower and off. And you told us as a DM you expected us to automatically go back to town, but we did not. We were not going to do that.
Restless spirits.
We were going to continue on our journey and make sure that whatever these encampments of orcs were, wherever they were, we were going to take care of it. And we stumbled across the next part of the session, which is the Bardrite Inn. In the Bardrite Inn, we end up going through an encounter with some halflings, a real intensive skill display and roleplay experience where you end up in possession of a tavern in the Bardrite Inn. Well, lo and behold, having charmed person and left the Feathergale Knights, an hour after we leave, whoever it is that I charmed is very well aware that I charmed them and very not pleased about it. And they end up launching a small assault on the Bardrite Inn, which we repel, I'm not going to say with ease, but we did very efficiently.
So give a setting for everyone. The Bardrite Inn is the largest tavern in the northwest of the Sword Coast. It's about 20 to 30 miles south of Neverwinter. And the actual inn is this huge 3-story wraparound building that has an outer wall that has only one gate.
Yeah, right. And there are little smaller inns almost attached to the building.
Yeah, and it's this super tavern that has so much money that it has its own army called the Swords, the 200 Swords, that is ran by the female halfling.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got this really awesome tavern that we end up in possession of the most illustrious bar in this whole tavern. And due to the traditions and so on of how everything works here, we have a certain amount of time to decide which halfling in this family that is in control of the Bardrite Inn really will take possession of the most illustrious tavern. I've made it very clear to the party, and I'll make it very clear now that my wizard does not want to give the tavern back to the halflings at all. And he wants to own a bar for the rest of his life, even though he's 72 years old.
And it's a really interesting concept because only one person in the party has to make the final decision, and it's the paladin.
Right. Well, we'll see how he goes, he being the lawful type of guy that he is. So anyways, the Feathergale Knights attack us in the Bardrite Inn, and we repel them. It was a very interesting fight from the walls of the Bardrite Inn, the main outer walls, where they've got the swords on ballista and stuff like that, which really didn't even have time to do much because we really efficiently took care of this. And there ended up being like a mini boss fight on the wall between one of the, I guess, the leaders of the Feathergale Knights.
Yeah, it was one of the priests with his companion.
And whatever it was, this hawk creature that had been imbued with specific magics and so on that made him extremely powerful. And we really did a good job as a party just taking care of that. And the next thing that happens is we're asked to go out and investigate some homesteads that have continued to be ransacked by the orcs that we were looking for when we stumbled across the Bardrite Inn. So we go out to do a little bit more investigation and see what's going on. Long story short, there's about 50 orcs giving march on the barge ride in, killing everything along the way. And so we decide to go to the next homestead that they're headed toward and try to see what we can do to save the people there.
So this is the next big point that I wanted to point out. What I really like about this is the siege warfare that's about to happen.
Yes.
And these mechanics are completely brand new from 4.0 and completely brand new from 3.5. So
I've never heard of anything like it.
Yeah, it's really, it goes along the lines of 3.5's Heroes of Battle, which gave all the rules for siege combat, but they are completely different. And I wanted to ask you, like, as a DM, it's awesome to see this huge battle that's fixing to unfold and see the chaos that really siege mechanics can wreak. But as a player, how do you feel about being able to control not only you, but the several NPCs that have stayed behind?
Well, that's new because almost always the DM is in control of NPC adventurers. And I'm really looking forward to getting I like having my fingers in the pudding, so to speak, and I'm getting more fingers in the pudding with having these NPCs that we're going to be able to control. But aside from that, what really has me is the building of fortifications, the using of your brain to set it all up before it actually happens.
Oh, yeah. The book basically gave them 3 hours, and the players had to come up with, in quotations, whatever defenses that they wanted to. And then they made a general roll across the table.
And we got all the defenses now and I'm not sure if our defenses are going to work out real well. Now that I've experienced this, if I have it to do over again, I will do it much differently. But we set up some defenses, some basic stuff, and we all got in the positions and everything. And here comes this big 50-man orc march with a giant bell with some of the people from the homesteads that they've conquered strapped to it, and some big, strong dudes just whacking on it with mallets, and you can hear them coming from far, far away. And then, boom! Session's over.
Session's over. It's almost Game of Thrones style. It's
cliffhangers in this campaign setting. And I mean, whether you're doing it, whether the book's doing it, man, the campaign is nothing but better for it.
I also want to add to the army, not only is this giant bell that's coming towards very ominous, and they don't know what it's going to do to them, or maybe to the fortifications, or whatever, to the game mechanics, but there's also a 2-headed dog that a 10-foot tall ogre is riding. And he looks like he's the leader of the group. So it's really cool that these high fantasy villains are being introduced instead of just being like 4 orcs and a leader. Instead, it really breathes life into an actual villain.
There is an army approaching. Maybe not a huge army, but it's an army, and it's coming. It's going to be 13 or 14 versus the 50 orcs. Now, I know my guy can do it. I know the rest of the Thug Nasty party can do it, but I don't know how many from this homestead are going to be left when it's all said and done. So moving on from gaming a little bit to something that we haven't been able to talk about a whole bunch, but that we really want to get on because there's a new project in the house that has started. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about this new cosplay idea that you've come up with and the work that you're starting to do on it?
All right, so for everyone that knows and everyone that goes, I'm going to Dragon Con in Atlanta later this year.
Very, very fun convention.
It's one of the biggest in the South, if not the biggest, other than, I think, Miami and Florida. Mm-hmm. So basically this year, what I'm doing is I'm doing a Mad Max. I'm doing the steering wheel and all.
Okay.
Not actual Mad Max, but I'm doing a character from Mad Max with all the movie props that I can make in time.
Are you going to tell us who it is, or are you going to keep it a secret?
I'm going to keep it a secret.
Okay.
I'm going to keep that one a secret.
Money in the bank.
The second one is a full, from head to toe, tech priest. I've already got the piping.
What?
Yeah, I didn't tell you yet.
Oh, my God.
I've already got the piping, and the cog axe is being made as well right now.
You just made me go shrill voice, dog. That's awesome. Oh, man, that's going to be so tight. Oh, it's going to be good.
Well, you
need to have somebody that is somehow smaller than you doing a servo skull cosplay.
It would
with
be
you.
really awesome, or a cherub, dude. One of the two.
Oh, my goodness. It would be so
awesome.
great. It would be so great.
So I'm doing that with, like I said, full robes. It's going to be made out of lemon. It's going to be made out of linen. So it's movie quality, blah, blah, blah. Then my third one is going to be the Vault Dweller.
Yes.
I'm going to be from Vault 8. which is Vault City in number 2. That's one of the first cities that was ever established outside of the vault. So it's a very prominent and hustling, bustling city. I went with that, just a retro style, but I'm going to be rolling with the Pip-Boy 3000.
All right, that's what's sprawled all across my
Yep.
kitchen table right now.
And so to give just a quick, just breakdown on that, it is not one of the hardest things that I've had to make. Definitely freehand painting the purity seals is the hardest that I've done so far.
Those purity seals that we've made, which surely at some point we'll get some pictures up, we'll probably make some more. We're so much fun, but definitely meticulous.
Yes, very meticulous. I mean, I think one of them took an entire week, just day to day, just to get the little things down pat.
I'd say that you as an individual, this is the third large prop that I know that you've made. We've got your Inquisition book and its holster on your Dagger Here
With
belt.
2 purity seals on it,
Yeah,
yep.
Yes, that is really a piece of work, if I do say so myself. We've got the Fin Sword, which was a picture on one of the previous podcasts that was all 100% handmade by us. And now this Pip-Boy. So in your progression of building props, what's some things, like some highlights that you might want to point out of some things that you've really enjoyed working with, or that you look forward to your ability to continue working with and making awesome looking stuff? Because at this point we know we can produce some awesome looking stuff.
Realizing, and how me and you, it took forever to make that Fin Sword, and we went through several hurdles
Right.
with trial and error on what to use, and we simply figured out that craft foam, and everyone out there understand this, craft foam and Plastidip can make anything.
Right.
And you can make it look movie quality. You just have to put the time and effort into painting it.
Right, from the most worn wood to the shiniest metal, you can take your craft foam and Plastidip and different types of paint, experiment with what you like the most. I personally enjoy acrylics when it comes to painting on Plastidip, but I'm not saying I know the end-all be-all. Obviously, we can improve, and there's always improvement to be done. But with this Pip-Boy that you're working on, it's 100% craft foam, correct?
Yeah, it's complete. It's complete craft foam all the way through, and then the very end is going to be Plastidip. And the fact that it's all craft foam, guys, if you just look at a resin cast of the Pip-Boy 3000 or a high quality from the game, if you can't really tell how many actual nooks and crannies it actually has until you look at a walkthrough on the actual design bit for bit. And when it comes to foam, I mean, some of these pieces are so minute. But once everything is glued in and you sand it down, that's when the Plastidip comes in, guys. And once you do the Plastidip, it doesn't matter what it looked like before, because you have a brand new item that's smoothed over completely, that then you can put even more detail if you paint. And the paint at the very end is really the trick of something that looks homemade and something that looks professional.
Absolutely. With referencing the way that you can fix your mistakes, per se, with your Plastidip, I definitely prefer the paint-on Plastidip. I feel like it allows me to try to even out my brush strokes and make everything look smooth. Whereas when you're trying to spray on Plastidip, it's a completely different texture. You might end up with some spots that are smoother than others.
You
or
get the
so on and
bubble
so
effect.
forth. Absolutely. And it just really, when you're able to decide the consistency of the application of the Plastidip, you're able to basically decide whatever material you want your item to have been made out of and make it happen. I've seen people, like we said, the most worn wood, who they get down and they make it look real good, and you go up and you poke at it and it's perfectly legal to use in a full contact LARP.
I mean, our shields are now Plastidip, guys,
And even
that's,
some of our swords get Plastidip on them.
and that's full force swinging. Yeah, and not only does it look good, but it's also sturdy.
Right. We call it a LARP, but in the end, this is more live action than role play at the end of every day. And that's what gets us into it, I believe. The role play is definitely where I feel at home. But would I be doing this if it wasn't physically entertaining to me? Probably not.
No, probably not. I mean, it's boxing with sticks with 500 people on the field. It's some instances.
Since we're on it and we're really approaching the last thing that we're going to be able to talk about, let's move on a little bit and discuss the fact that one of the biggest LARP events that we participate in just ended this past week with Ragnarok in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. And the pictures are fantastic.
Ragnarok 30, by the way. Congratulations, everyone.
Yes, it's something that has grown into one of my favorite things, and I was really sad to have missed it this year. They say that it was the most registered people at any Ragnarok, even with some of the rain and the flooding that happened, which has
really
been
bad
happening.
flooding.
It's been happening the past couple of years, but this time this seems like nature said, screw you guys. But the people who came together and still made the event happen, coming home with the stories, getting me fired up to go, and I wasn't even there. I just wanted to shed some light for you guys that this event happened, and for those of you listening that went, good on you guys. I hope you had a great time, and I'll see you next year. I'll see you before next year. We got Summer Slaughter coming up, Winter War's coming up.
Winter War.
We're gonna be involved. We've really taken a hiatus from the LARP atmosphere with some career moves and stuff like that. But as we get back into this LARP thing, we're gonna be reporting on these events and telling you guys stories about the battles that we really fought this past weekend and so on and so forth.
So two things at Ragnarok I'd like to point out. One, I'm really proud and was excited to see all of the people that did the tournaments in the drenching downpour. All the tournaments were held in a torrential rain. If you haven't looked at the pictures, everyone is soaked to the bone, but they still did all of them.
I've seen it, and that's real mad respect to those guys.
And, that's some of our good battle buddies, doing all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, those winners, man. I like
all those winners, man.
Those guys. I like seeing that at the national event that my homies made it, man.
And second thing is, and for people that have seen role models, please don't try to associate this, but understand that this is just a loose title of a battle that's only done once a year.
Yes.
And it's the King of Dagahir. Thank you, EXO, for winning a second year.
Right.
I'm so glad that you were not taken down by anyone else, and it really shows the devotion of your gathered army.
Long live EXO and the Golden Throne.
Long live the Golden Throne.
I agree. Mad props to EXO. I heard that the King battle was full of silliness and craziness that makes our game fun sometimes, and I really think EXO as an individual does a fine job of bringing that to the table. And when it comes to the King of Dagahir, I really feel like if there's any responsibility, it's that you bring that role play element to that one fight every year.
And you gather all the folk up just to fight.
You build your army and you fight with them, and it does throw to role models a little bit, but it's fun to take part in that element of role play as well, where we know this guy is an individual, and that's why we fight for him. I fight for the Golden Throne, and so do the rest of the Knights of the Cross and Crown. I know you and yours go with them when the King battle happens, and I will until he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah,
I enjoy
EXO,
EXO,
and he's a good guy as an individual.
And I don't mean that to say that the other King of Dagahir before the King before them weren't the same.
But that's our boy, dude.
But that's our boy, and I'm really proud of him for getting the fighters behind him to get on that national stage and win that fight 2 years in a row. So good on you, EXO, if you're listening, or if anybody's out there listening that could tell him the call to the Brumans bottle tips their hat to you.
So another thing I want to point out, since we were talking about cosplaying and LARPing at the same time, and you've seen the pictures. What did you think about like the shield designs and the artwork that's on them, and the how people have like gone above and beyond with their outfits and their characters, like Xander's troll outfit?
That was what I was going to bring up. Now, I didn't see many shield designs or anything. I haven't really gone through the pictures like I do when I'm looking for pictures of myself. But the pictures that I have seen, that sounded so vain. But the pictures that I have seen, Xander's outfit stood out, as well as a lot of the other armor kits from people like the Order.
Oh man, the Order looks so good.
Some of the purple people in Ravenous are really looking on point alongside Xander.
Dude, what about No Quarter, dude? Holy crap.
Kits. That's King EXO's group right there. That he runs with them, so they gotta look good. So, they're all just looking wonderful. We've got people producing some of the highest quality props I've ever seen in our game right now. When it comes to the new tech and the weaponry that we use, shout out to Gorg the blacksmith for doing a fine job every time.
For several years. Good job, man.
Great job. But to the other people that are jumping in with the clothing and things like that, I mean, really, really awesome work.
The over-the-top tunics. I mean, and some of them are a little costly, but dude, for a lifetime guarantee on the artwork that they put into them, and it's beyond movie. It's like it's high fantasy. They look like a high fantasy character dressed up.
Well, and that's what I want in our game. I think one thing that our game is lacking, and I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, guys, we got to get together and fix this problem." But one thing that our game is visibly lacking is a solid push toward making it look awesome. When we're out there and we're fighting, it looks awesome to us to see all the heraldry and the things that it means to us. But what about when people who don't have any clue what we're doing look at these pictures? Where does it send their brain? Does it send them to role models? Or does it send them to Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings? And there's one of those directions is the best direction, and I don't even have to mention which it is. And I just want us as a group to move in that direction.
I completely agree. It's we have pockets of individuals and pockets of small groups that are starting to slowly gather. There are some major groups out there that went above and beyond, even though they, with high numbers like. How militia, they all are undead creatures, so they all wear skull masks, and they're all different designs.
Absolutely.
And, their outfits really show this, like, old black and white 1950s kind of hard, maybe almost even like Army of the Dead kind of look to them.
Oh yeah, and then you've got on the complete other end of that spectrum the Wargar guys and their full regalia of their army that they've built in this fantasy world.
Those guys, I mean, out of everyone, they're
march.
Really close. Yeah, it reminds me of Game of Thrones.
Yes,
it's like some kind of random just house out there. Own army.
It's such a good analogy. They are like a house, and it's like the army of whatever lord they serve. But guys, this has been just an awesome time sitting down with you yet again this week. I've really enjoyed it. I feel like Matt and myself, every single episode, we're opening up more. We're feeling more at home sitting behind these microphones and talking with you. And we're getting toward the end. I don't want it to end. I don't want to stop.
I'm not even done talking.
I know, dude. But we've hit the hour mark, and especially with the website coming up, we've really got to be on point with how long these things are and how large they are with the storage capacity. But y'all guys don't have to worry about any of that. It's been a great, great evening talking with y'all. We'll get this thing uploaded tomorrow as soon as humanly possible. And as usual, this has been Josh.
And this is Matt.
And this has been the Call to the Brewman's Bottle.